Hello, everybody, and welcome back to His and Hers Horror Movie Podcast. Or is it His and Hers Movie Podcast? I haven't decided yet, but I'm pretty sure that Jason Lloyd decided for me. Because I think the show is now up on Horophilia as His and Hers Movie Podcast, aka Double HMP. I'm your host, JP. And joining me, as always, is my second in command out of two.
Oh, okay.
Carly.
Carly.
What's going on?
Not much, buddy. Not much. Just got home from wizardy work, and now we are recording our second episode. We're doing good.
Yeah, we are 2 in a row. That is like a record almost.
Yeah.
So the first episode went over really well, I think. I think it had more responsiveness than Netflix and Chill did. I think that it, seemed to be stuff that people liked. Watson, Lil Old Watt. Not Lil Watt, that's
Little Old Watt.
Yeah, Lil Old Watt. Little Big Watt. There we go, Lil Big Watt. Actually pointed out the fact that he said this one sounded kind of professional and, that it was a little bit different from Netflix and Chill. Because I think a lot of people might think like, oh, there's Carly and JP and they did Netflix and Chill. His and Her Movie Podcast is exactly the same as Netflix and Chill, except for they're not doing Netflix films or streaming films. But that's not necessarily true. I kind of wanted to take a different approach to the entire podcast, and that was to sort of make it a little bit more serious and just like less jokey aroundy, I guess, if that's a term. But we could still joke and things like that. I just wanted it to be a little bit more professional sounding and less goofy. But we still have Netflix and Chill, which we will still do episodes for occasionally, and we could still do that on there. But I didn't want to create the exact same podcast again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't know, Netflix and Chill, when we first started I didn't exist until we started that podcast, so people didn't really know me back then. So it's I feel like it didn't take off from the start because of that, maybe. And now it's people know who we are, so they're more willing to give us a shot.
Yeah.
They always knew who you were, but I'm not just some random.
You're still some random.
No, buddy, I swear. I'm pretty popular among the crowd, I think.
So, So what, we got a pretty cool show tonight. We're going to be talking Underwater later in the show, the newest film to hit the January dump month. Or is it? What is a dump month, you might be asking? Well, I'll answer those questions a little bit later before the review. But first, we have some other things to discuss. So, 1, I want to know what you did this week. Then 2, I want to know what your thoughts are on the film Misery, because we both saw that. So we'll discuss that too. And then if we've watched anything, I want to know what we watched as well. So we got kind of a cool show planned. So first up, what did you do this week?
This week? Well, at the time we're recording, it is Monday, but the past...
the past week.
Yeah, I guess, the weekends. I went to the mall this weekend, actually, and I actually bought a few things for myself, which I usually don't do that. I'm not a big mall goer and buyer of things unless it's movies, and I actually bought some stuff. I was looking for normal clothes because I've been milking the same clothes since high school, but it turns out clothes are really expensive, so I ended up in Hot Topic and I ended up buying some more horror t-shirts, which I'm pretty happy with because that collection's getting pretty big. I counted, and I think I have 11 shirts at this point that are horror related, which I'm sure you have probably triple that at this point, but that was cool. And other than that, I haven't really done too much. Obviously, we saw Misery on that Wednesday. That was cool. And yeah, other than that, I've pretty much just been chilling out, watching movies, and that's about it. January's usually a pretty laid back, boring month for me.
Yeah, January is a month that I find sort of depressing because it's another year start, which means that another year ended, and that makes me sad usually. But then I get over it a little bit because it's another, whole year to explore. But it's cold, it's nasty, it's holidays are all over, so you have like the post-holiday blues because from October on it's like holiday, 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 holiday.
Yeah, I
And
always
then
hated that design of the world, how you have all this awesome stuff going on and then it just ends, and then for like 3 to 4 months there's just nothing.
yeah, and
And
especially with us
hmm
because we have like, okay, starting let's say April, we have the drive-in thing that we go to. Other drive-ins are opening. Movies are starting to come out more frequently. The weather's getting better, right? And then you have May, which is like your first like nice warm month. And then you have June, which is like, oh, it's summertime now. And then you have July, which you have the 4th of July, which is fun. And then August and September, cool. September we do, and we do other like conventions and stuff like that during this time. And then, September rolls around and it's like, okay, summer's ending, but we still have October to look forward to. So we do October, and then we have Thanksgiving, and then we have Christmas, and then it's like January, February, March, depressed.
yeah.
But March is okay, but January and February just rough for me.
Yeah, I mean, my birthday's in March, that's about all I have to look forward to, but I don't know, this year I feel like January I haven't been super depressed yet. But
I agree.
Also
I think it's because the weather hasn't
that's
been
what I was gonna
super
say.
bad.
Yeah, it usually like hits really hard in January and February, and it hasn't been too bad. I think it's supposed to snow like Sunday, so I'm like kind of getting nervous that it's gonna, kind of go downhill from there. But yeah, on Saturday it was freaking 70 degrees out, so you didn't even have to wear a jacket. It was really nice, but it's also deceiving because it's gonna end. But yeah, so far I haven't been depressed. I think January drags on forever. I think for some reason January is the longest month in the entire year, and I am getting that sort of like, to me, it's the 13th. I feel like it should be in the 20s by now, but we're only on January 13th. So it is dragging on, but it's not been like a horrible drag on like it usually is.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me this week, I had quite a decently busy week. To start, I recorded 22 shots, and that went well. We did a mockumentary show with Mike Merriman. By the time you hear this, that episode should be out or about to come out. We did The Tunnel. Have you ever seen The Tunnel?
I have not.
It is an Australian film about this underground tunnel where there should be like some sort of water supply. And these group of filmmakers or investigative reporters go down into the depths, and it's actually pretty scary. Lake Mungo, have you ever seen that?
Nope.
That was part of the 8 Films to Die For, Line 4. Were you familiar with the 8 Films to Die For?
Yeah, I know about them. I might have some in my collection. I'm not 100% sure, though. I would have to know what they all are. But yeah, I know about them.
What were they?
I don't know.
Oh.
I just mean, like, I know, like, yes, I've seen those movies.
They exist.
Yeah, I know they exist, and I know I've seen them before, but I'm saying, like, I don't know which movies they are exactly.
It was actually pretty cool. So Lionsgate picked up all these films in, like, 2005 or something like that, 2006. And they actually put on a little horror festival with all 8 of them and marketed it as the After Dark Horror Fest 8 Films to Die For. And it was very successful. Like they had like the gimmick of like, like the scariest the like most intense movie, the most like horrifying movies you've ever seen, like that thing. I remember seeing commercials for it on TV and stuff. And it was a pretty big success, and it basically, you know, was so much of a success that they did it 3 more times. Well, 4 more times total, kind of, but 3 more times really. So the first year, the second year, third year, fourth year. The first year like almost all the films are passable or decent. The second year had a lot of good films. The third year is the worst year, and then the fourth year has like 2 or 3 good films, including Lake Mungo. But it was a pretty cool concept, and they tried to bring it back in 2015, but they just released them all on VOD at like $20. It didn't really work so much, but yeah, I wish they would have continued doing that. They had like contests and stuff for like After Dark Horror Fest Girl or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a cool time. I remember like actually seeing it happen back then. So we did Lake Mungo, which is decent, and then the Bay, which was really good. I know Dave Z is a huge fan of the Bay. The Bay is scary.
Why did you do those 3 films?
Derek picked them, and they're all mockumentaries.
Oh, okay.
So they're like fake documentaries, if you didn't know what a mockumentary was.
I know what it be.
Oh. Okay, so we recorded that fun episode. There is a very funny moment on that show involving Mike Merriman and some sounds. So I'll just leave it at that. Check it out if you haven't, or when it comes out. You know, it should be on Patreon. Definitely, very soon. So
yeah.
After that, I watched, some NFL football. Playoffs were on. Divisional round. I know you don't care.
I don't. I really don't. I don't know what it means. I don't care about it. I don't care to know what it means. I'm sorry.
I also worked on a podcast. I actually recorded about 20 minutes worth of Vestron Video Horror Podcast, episode number 5.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So that is Chud to Bud the Chud. And I worked on that actually last night when I couldn't sleep. And it actually turned out really solid so far. I'm actually pretty happy with that. So, yeah, besides that, I mean, that'll probably come out not too long from now, because it's honestly not that big of a release. There's only a couple special features, but yeah, that'll come out eventually. And then I watched some movies. So would you like to know what I watched?
I would.
Okay. Well, I would like to know what you watched first.
Oh, all right. Sorry if you can hear scratching in the background. My cat has taken a shit, and he's been trying to cover it up for the past 20 minutes for some reason.
Buddy,
but
we
anyway,
do not curse on this show.
We do not?
We do not.
Oh, you never established that.
I don't know if we do.
I definitely said
in the first episode, I don't think.
I definitely said the SH word once in the first
episode. Well,
so
I guess we're not doing any, what does Watson call it? Hard edits. We're not doing any hard edits.
Dude, I just listened to, not to be off topic, but I finally listened to Watz Party and their episode 8, and I was cracking up because Dave Z, says the F word at one point 10 times in a row, it seems like, and Watson just bleeped every single one out. I thought that was funny.
That is funny.
Anyway, yeah, I really haven't watched a ton of stuff. I haven't been watching a ton of stuff. I've actually watched 12 movies, though, and it's the 13th, so I've pretty much watched a movie per day. Some days I watch 2 movies in one day, so technically I haven't been watching a ton. I've kind of been going laid back, which I tend to do at the start of the new year, since it's all craziness up to the new year. But I guess I could start with, I watched Mask Maker from, I forget what year this is from, maybe 2010-ish or something like that, but it's a movie I bought at Big Lots. I think it was only $1.88, and it was one I was always kind of curious about, and in a way it's essentially like a Texas Chainsaw ripoff, kind of. You have like this girl who her boyfriend buys her a house for her birthday, which wish that would happen for me. But and they go to this house and they're gonna fix it up because it's kind of like this old house in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, oh, we can fix it up and then eventually sell it one day and make all this money and blah blah blah. So they are doing that, and they have some friends over, of course, to help them out and to just hang out. But there is this backstory that you see at the beginning, and there is a killer still lurking around the property, and he starts, of course, killing them. And his thing is he rips off their faces and uses them as masks, so you can kind of see how it's very much like TCM. I actually thought it was decent. I was kind of scared it was going to totally suck and be very low budget. You could definitely feel it kind of is a little bit low budget, but I enjoyed it. I thought the dialogue between some of the characters, especially the boyfriend and girlfriend, was weird. Like, just the way they talk to each other is kind of cringy. But other than that, I enjoyed it. The thing with the masks, I think was actually pretty creepy the way he does it and puts them on, and it looked pretty scary to me, so I enjoyed that. The setting's cool. I always like settings are in the middle of nowhere. Really the only complaint is kind of the characters are a little bit annoying, and some of the stuff they say is just dumb, and some of the stuff they do is pretty dumb. It's nothing special. Kind of just a generic slasher, nothing obviously original, but I liked it. I gave it 6.5 out of 10. Have you ever seen that movie?
What is it? Mask
Maker?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't remember it very well, but I do own it and I have seen it.
All right. Well,
isn't that part of the After Dark originals? No, it's not. I'm thinking of The Task, but it came out around the same time.
Yeah, I didn't think it was, but yeah. Should I read all mine off, or should we go back and forth?
Good.
All right. I really don't have that many, honestly. I literally only have like 2 more. But the next one is Christina's House. I watched this for my YouTube channel, basically, because I go through my entire collection and do a review every week, which is crazy because I have a million movies and it's really hard to get through them all. But, you know, I have fun going through and watching them. It gives me a reason to rewatch stuff that otherwise I probably wouldn't. But Christina's House, this is a movie I actually bought at a pawn shop when you and I went to the drive-in probably 2 years ago at this point, and just thought the cover was pretty cool, so decided to pick it up. This movie is essentially about this girl, Christina, her dad, and her, like, little brother, annoying little 14-year-old brother, move into this house, and her mom, you kind of learn, has problems, so she's not really in the picture, but they move into this house, and there's these weird sounds that are kind of going on throughout the house, and Christina starts getting a little suspicious. She feels like there's someone lurking in the house, but, you know, every time she looks, there's really nothing going on, and that's kind of the general idea, I guess, with the story. And then, of course, you have all the stuff going on where Christina has, like, a boyfriend and just friends, and well, I guess I forgot to mention that some murders start to happen around the town, and of course that makes her more suspicious. It's from the year 2000 or 2001. 2000, I think, is when it initially was released, and it for sure is like a post-Scream era type of film. It even has kind of floating heads going on the cover. This one, again, the dialogue's a little bit cheesy. It's got that, like, almost soap opera-y drama feel to it at times with the teenage characters, and there's not a ton really going on in the movie besides the few kills here and there, which you don't really see any of happen. It's more, kind of plays out more like a thriller up until the ending, so, you know, there's not a ton going on until the third act, really, so it's not the best movie in the world, but it's not horrible either. The acting's decent, and the way it's shot is decent, and it doesn't feel super low quality or anything like that, but once again, just kind of a decent movie, nothing too special. I gave that one 6.5 out of 10 as well. And then lastly, I won't really talk much about this, but I watched A Bronx Tale, which I'm doing with Derek, actually recording tomorrow on Celluloid Dissections. And that was the first time watch, and I will say I liked it quite a bit. So I don't really want to go into that one, but yeah, overall I haven't really watched a ton of movies as of late.
Gotcha.
So,
All right. So me, I'm only talking about ones that I watched in my collection, as I mentioned last episode that I was trying to work through my collection. So what I watched this week from my collection was, to start off, Lake Mungo, which was part of the After Dark Horror Fest. I actually got the Lake Mungo After Dark Horror Fest DVD in the box set, because they did put out box sets for each of the After Dark Horror Fests. And there was a website called Go Hastings back in the day where you could, get like buy two, get one free type things. And they did all these crazy deals. And one time they did these, buy, I forget what it was. But anyway, I got these box sets for I got that box set for $8. It was like insane, because that thing goes for like 50, 60. Even today, it's like that high. They never really came down in price. But I thought that was pretty cool. Finally opened it, popped in Lake Mungo. It's a mockumentary. It follows a girl who was found dead on a shore, and it interviews her family and the mysterious surroundings with her death, as well as the people involved. Pretty cool. I had some problems with it. You could hear a full review on 22 Shots. Then I watched the Western classic, The Quick and the Dead, which is a Sam Raimi film. Did I talk about this last week? I hope I didn't.
I don't think you did. I mean, you've talked about it to me multiple times at this point, so I can't even remember exactly.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Western. It basically follows a woman whose father was murdered when she was a child. She's haunted by that, by a guy, an outlaw, who is now the mayor of a town. She enters a quick draw contest to get revenge, and there's a bunch of interesting characters. Keith David's in this film. You also have Gene Hackman. You have the awesome Lance Henriksen, who's playing Ace. It's just a pretty cool movie overall. Definitely can tell it was done by Sam Raimi. It's funny, I didn't know that when I first seen it, and I liked it. And then when I found out it was Sam Raimi, I was like, dude, that does not surprise me at all, because it totally, you start thinking about all these like shots and stuff. It reminds you of like stuff that he did in Evil Dead and stuff like that. Then I popped in The Brain from Scream Factory. That movie was a lot better than I expected. It's about a dude who has to go to this behavioral clinic because he's a bad kid, and there's a scientist who's doing experiments with this giant brain. I thought this. I actually saw this back when I was like first on YouTube, because it was on YouTube, and it was kind of known as one of those films that had never been on DVD before, so I checked it out, but the quality was so bad that I don't remember enjoying it too much. I know you watched this one, not too long ago. I think that it's a lot better than you would expect it to be.
Yeah, I agree. I watched it. I forget it. Yeah, it was several months ago at this point, so I don't remember it a ton. But yeah, I agree. It is much better. I mean, a movie called The Brain, you would think would be super cheesy and kind of lame, but it was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah. Then I watched House by the Cemetery, because I got it in on disc from Blue Underground, the cool 3-discer that's about to come out. I decided to pop it in and check it out, revisit it. It's been a couple years since I've seen it. You've seen House by the Cemetery, right?
I have. I do like that movie. I think it's got a cool atmosphere to it.
Yeah, Lucio Fulci. It's a movie that is just bizarre. Like, it's part haunted house, like part mad scientist, and like part gates of hell. It was a little bit hard to follow, but I think I understand it more than ever this time. It's a pretty cool movie. Like, the ending is worthwhile. Bob is annoying. Everybody knows that. But it's kind of a weird one from Fulci. I much prefer the less giallo Italian films, and this one definitely isn't a giallo. So That's pretty cool. That was a good watch. And then after that, I watched Green Room. I revisited Green Room, and Green Room follows a group of musicians who are called the Ain't Rights, and they play a show at a secluded bar for a bunch of skinheads and witness something they shouldn't have. The skinheads attack, and it's like a siege narrative. It's a really good movie. I've seen it before, and it made my top 10 of 2016. It made my top 5 actually, but I would argue that this is even better than that and should have been in my top 3. I fell in love with it this time, and it was such a good movie. And then while I was watching it, I was looking up the actors, and I knew that good old Anton Yelchin, rest in peace, was in this film, and he did such a good job. And I was thinking of other films that I had seen him in, such as Alpha Dog and a few others. And then I noticed that Imogen Poots is also in this film, and I remembered that they did a film together called Fright Night from 2011. So I decided to watch Fright Night. Oh, I didn't rate any of these.
Oh, well. I mean, it's probably,
All right. I gave, really quickly, I gave Lake Manga, you know what? I'm not going to rate them because I talk about some of them on other podcasts, so I won't rate them. And then, so I popped in Fright Night 2011 and decided to give that a rewatch. I like the movie. I did when it came out. Did you see it ever?
No, I've never seen that one.
Yeah, it has McLovin in it as Evil Ed.
Who is McLovin?
You can't be serious.
I'm just a little curious on who McLovin is.
McLovin, dude.
Yeah, McLovin.
Are you being serious?
Who is it, dude? I know the name. Who is it? Tell me, please. You're making me look dumb.
It's the guy from Superbad, man.
Oh, okay. Well, then I've never seen that movie, so
what?
I never understood that reference. When people are like, "Oh, McLovin's in this."
Are you like you've never seen Superbad?
You know, I tell you all the time that I haven't seen movies.
Like, I don't know how you grew up in that era. How did you not see Superbad?
I literally avoided those movies. They seem dumb to me, like Step Brothers, Superbad, other stupid sex comedies, I guess you would call them.
Dude, that era was the Judd Apatow movies. Like, that era was like the return of the sex comedy, and it's been like a gone genre. But that was a good era, dude. It really was.
They just never seemed like I would really find them funny. Maybe it's because I was young, though. But I was also like 12 years old at that time, like 10 to 12 years old probably when those came out. So like I really didn't get in, like I wasn't a big fan of those just overly adult type of comedies and humor.
Were you not allowed to watch rated R movies?
No, I was. I just wasn't a fan. Yeah, my mom didn't care what I watched.
Maybe you couldn't handle rated R movies at the time, buddy. It's okay.
I could. I watched American Pie and the road trip movie like back then, but
yeah, I
like those. I don't know.
Well, anyway, there's a scene in Superbad where they are trying to get beer. Michael Cera and what's the dude's name? The chubby dude.
Seth.
Nope, not Seth Rogen.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
The other dude.
Oh, Jonah Hill?
Yeah, Jonah Hill, sorry.
I'm literally just throwing out names because I know all these people played in those movies.
They're trying to get, like, beer, and they have this weirdo friend, McLovin, or not, I forget his name in the movie, but he comes and he's like, I got a fake ID, and they're like, awesome. And he has a fake ID, and his name is McLovin. It just says McLovin on it. And he's like, Jonah Hill, like, flips shit, and he's like, he's like, why would you get a fake ID that says McLovin? He's like, cool name, right? Or something. And they're like, no, it's retarded. Nobody's going to believe that's your real name. And he's like, and it's just one name. There's no last name on it. See, you would like this movie. It's funny.
That's funny, buddy.
Anyway, he's in Fright Night 2011 as Evil Ed. Stephen Jeffries originally played Evil Ed in the original Fright Night.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, I actually really like it, man. Colin Farrell plays Jerry Dandridge, and Anton Yelchin plays Charlie Brewster. It's basically the same movie, except for in this one, Imogen Poots is like way hotter than Amanda Beers, for one. And then also you have sort of this. It was actually in 3D. I totally forgot that. Yeah, it was originally 3D. But I don't know. I just like Peter Vincent's kind of a little bit lamer. He's like more of like a Chris Angel knockoff. But it's honestly, it's a pretty good effort. I like the Disturbia Rear Window-esque quality to the film, even though that's not a huge part of it. I like the look and feel of the movie, and honestly, Anton Yelchin is awesome. So, yeah, that's Fright Night. I decided to rewatch it simply because Anton Yelchin was in it. So then I'm gonna watch Odd Thomas, which is the only other horror film I think he was in. I think I own it, but it's not on my alphabetical shelf, so it's somewhere else. So I'll have to look for that. I think I own it at least. And then I watched Shivers for our next podcast, which is a David Cronenberg spotlight on 22 Shots. That's the apartment complex we watched with Austin and Andrew.
Yeah, that was like a long time ago.
Yeah, pretty good. But we will talk about that further next week. And then finally, the last thing that I watched was I revisited Children of the Corn on Blu-ray. I have the Arrow video release. It's just a favorite of mine, honestly. I understand why people don't like it. It's a little bit slow at times, but it has I love the opening murder scene. It's just so horrific. And the music is really good. I just like the atmosphere in Children of the Corn. I love religious-based horror movies, and Children of the Corn is one of the best that does that. It's a little bit dated. I realize that, but it's always going to be a favorite of mine. So that was really awesome.
Yeah, that one's not a favorite of mine, but I like settings in the middle of nowhere, just like abandoned towns. So I've always liked it for that.
Yeah, but I actually watched quite a lot of discs this week again.
Discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, well, what can I say? I'm trying to take on this challenge head on.
Yeah, you're making me feel like Jeremy, like in the first episodes of 22 Shots, where you guys would be like, all right, guys, quick cuts, and then he would have like half a movie watched, and Moots would have like 25.
Yeah. Well,
but
you watched.
I'm gonna be watching more. What?
I said you watched some stuff.
Yeah, I pretty much, like I said, I've been watching like a movie
That's
a day.
Not even all I watched. I watched other stuff, but not on DVD, like on streaming and stuff.
I was like, what are you saying? Discs? Like you're trying to be hip now with...
No, I literally mean like I watched a lot of the discs that I wanted to watch.
Yeah, I feel. I do want, like, I'm going to start picking up again and watching more stuff. I was just like, oh.
It's not a competition, Carly.
I'm feeling like it is. You just said that you're trying to go head on, whatever.
On the challenge that I set for myself of watching my collection.
All right, well, I don't have a challenge, so whatever.
Well, I didn't say you had to have one.
I just am feeling kind of attacked.
You're ridiculous.
Okay. Let's move along, shall we?
Yeah, so after we watched all those movies, we actually went and saw one more movie in the theater. This was a theatrical screening. The local AMC, it's not super local to us. It's about 40 minutes away. Mm-hmm. It's the Waterfront. It's an AMC theater, and it is they do this thing called Classic Movie Night, and basically every Wednesday and every Tuesday and Thursday in December they do a classic movie, and sometimes it's something that we actually care about. Other times it's like something that we don't care about, like Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Which is a good movie, but just I'm not going to go watch the 3 hour Lawrence of Arabia movie in the theater. Just not what I get excited for.
Yeah.
But every like September, October, we usually see everything because it's like, or we'll usually skip the one like kids one, like I don't know, like Labyrinth or something.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, we try to go and see all the movies we can, if we're not busy on the Wednesday. But even sprinkled throughout the year, sometimes they'll show stuff like The Thing in January because it's cold, or they'll show Psycho in the middle of the, whenever. We first when did we? I feel like it was like 3 years ago we first noticed they were doing this.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the first one we went to.
It was like Psycho.
Yeah, it was either. I know The Shining, Psycho, and The Thing were like the first, like the earliest ones we probably went to, but I don't remember what order. Huh.
Yeah, I think it was Psycho.
Actually, yeah, you're probably right, because that was like the first movie they did in October, or late September.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really fun. They announced. I know that in February we're going to be able to see My Bloody Valentine and The Invisible Man, the original. Or that might be Invisible Man might be March, but it might be late February. So that's cool. Normally there's like 2 to 3 peppered throughout the year horror movies that aren't in September or October. So it's always nice when they do a few more. We've seen so many though. I mean, they've shown like stuff like The Mist there,
Yeah.
And like random stuff like John Carpenter's Vampires. We've seen
Fright Night. The original Fright Night.
Classic stuff like Frankenstein. Did we see Frankenstein? No,
we saw
Dracula and the Wolfman. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been. I even got him to play Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all you.
It was me. I did that.
You probably did.
Just like I got Joe Bob back on Shudder.
All right, dude.
Okay.
But Blair Witch was awesome. That was one of my favorites, honestly, in like recent time.
Yeah, Blair Witch was one of my favorites. At that specific theater, honestly, like Psycho was one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
The Goonies, when we saw that was one of my favorites. Oh my god, I wonder if I could get him to play Stand By Me.
I'm surprised they haven't done that.
Yeah, we should try to get that to happen for the summer. Jaws, I saw once. You saw twice, I think. Or did I see twice and you saw 3 times?
I've seen it 3 times.
Yeah,
you saw it twice. They play it every July, I believe.
No. My favorite. Friday the 13th. That was my favorite.
Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting that we've seen so many. I should have kept track of.
I know. I had a list of everything I ever saw, like retro in theaters or, drive-ins. I need to update that because it's about 2 years old at this point.
Yeah. We saw I Know What You Did Last Summer there, too.
That was actually another one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was fun. There weren't a lot. It wasn't a big turnout for that, which sucked, but I had a good time.
Yeah, so they played Misery this week, which I was really excited for because that's a movie that they should have played a long time ago. It's the 30th anniversary screening that we went to, and it's actually the perfect time because, 1, it's cold, and 2, it's the 30th anniversary, so I'm glad they held off, I guess. Unfortunately, I did just watch Misery for Duncan's summer series back in the summer, late summer. So, it was fresh in my head. I watched it less than a year ago. It did not curb my enjoyment whatsoever. So, what is Misery about?
Misery is about a famous writer by the name of Paul Sheldon, who is recklessly driving down a hill when there's a giant storm going on for some reason, and he wrecks his car, and the great Annie Wilkes finds him, picks him up, takes him back to her house, and she seems very sweet at first. She's his number 1 fan, quote unquote, and she's like, hey, I'll take care of you. The roads are too clogged up and it's too messy out there to take you to the hospital. The phones are off, but I'll take care of you and then we'll get you to a hospital. But then things aren't what they seem with Annie. She turns out to be pretty whacked and pretty obsessed and Paul Sheldon is pretty much writing to save his life, as I believe the cover of the movie has as the tagline.
Really?
Yeah. It says Paul Sheldon used to write for a living, now he's writing to save his life. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the direct quote.
Yeah, this film is, I guess, considered one of the greatest horror films ever, and I could see why. I know that it actually got a lot of positive critical affair too, which is not necessarily something you see in horror. So that's a huge, feather in its cap.
Mm-hmm.
But the film itself is just so good. I've said this many times. I think that Misery is about as close to a Hitchcock film as you can get since Hitchcock died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Misery, it's one that I grew up watching over and over again. It was always on TV, so it's one of those ones, it doesn't matter if I just watched it, it doesn't hinder my enjoyment. Like you said, it's one that has a lot of rewatchability. I actually just watched it probably a year ago when I picked up The Scream Factory, and I was blown away by it once again because up until that point I hadn't watched it probably since I was a kid, and I was like, wow, this is actually... this is probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's just one that I hadn't watched in so long. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's fantastic. There's really nothing wrong with it in my eyes. I actually recently read the book as well, and I thought the book was really, really good. And I think that this adaptation does the book justice. I mean, the book is a little more intense, but I think that they toned down all the right stuff for the movie to make it not ridiculous or too over the top.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great choice to sort of, tone down some of the ridiculous stuff that happened in the book. It works in the book, but it's just a different tone on film. I think sometimes that stuff doesn't translate to screen very well. This, again, I said that this film was, an award-winning film. Kathy Bates actually won an Oscar for Best Actress, which is well deserved. Well deserved. Of course, they probably didn't call this a horror film. They probably called it a psychological thriller or something.
Which I could totally see that with this movie, but...
I mean, it is, but it's also... This is horror, too. Come on.
It is. But I can see how they kind of slipped through the cracks and just put thriller probably across the top.
Well, the Academy is sort of known for anytime there's a horror film that sniffs the surface, it's automatically labeled as a thriller. So sometimes I feel like any horror film can also be labeled as a thriller.
Well, yeah.
But whenever it's a professional horror film with even Silence of the Lambs, I could see more thriller. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, she won a Golden Globe and a Oscar for Best Actress, which is pretty impressive. One of very few horror films to get any sort of Oscar recognition. So yeah, I think that some of my favorite aspects of this film is Kathy Bates. She just absolutely kills it. I think that Kathy Bates' performance as Annie Wilkes is one of the greatest horror performances in history. And I'm not just saying that. I truly mean against anybody else. Against all of the best horror performances. Everything that you could think of, Freddy or Robert Englund as Freddy. What is some other, Hannibal Lecter or who the hell even plays Hannibal Lecter? What's his name?
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. Norman Bates as Psycho.
All right, buddy, we get it.
Dude, I suck at this.
It's okay.
We get your
Anthony
point. Perkins as Norman Bates. I said Anthony Bates. I said Norman Bates is Psycho.
As the Psycho.
But all those great performances, I think Annie Wilkes or Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes is up there in the echelon of greats. Seriously, it is an insane performance. Every moment in this film is 100% amazing acting. Even Paul Sheldon, James Caan is really good. Even the sheriff is really good. Everybody's great in this film.
Yeah, like the sheriff and his wife. I love that dynamic between them. Paul Sheldon, yeah, I was gonna bring that up. I think James Caan's perfect with just the way he looks at her, like all the shots of him just like, what the heck is going, like he just looks like a guy who would be screwed in that situation and doesn't know how to react. And I think he does a perfect job. And I agree, like Kathy Bates is fantastic. I think the way the movie's shot is really well done too. Just the close-ups you get of her face whenever she goes from like 0 to 100. It comes off as, it's funny. You laugh sometimes in the movie, but at the same time, it's great. She's just pulling it off so well.
You genuinely feel like this woman could have held you captive.
Yeah.
Like, you don't feel like James Caan is like, you know how sometimes you watch like movies and you're like, how is this little chick like keeping that, like, just beat her up, dude, like, yeah. You never feel like James Caan can actually fight back very well. But man, it is just scary. Like the nighttime when he's sleeping and then like Kathy Bates is just standing next to him. Dude, That is so creepy, man. And then I just love how the story progresses. There's very little in it in terms of like plot holes or things that don't make sense. It's just a great movie. I think that it's one of the best horror films ever made. I give it a 10 out of 10.
I also grant it a 10 out of 10. Like this movie, just rewatching it this time, it would probably be in like my top 20 movies of all time. There's a few movies I've watched recently where I'm like, oh, that would probably be like in my top list ever at this point, and this is definitely up there now.
Yeah, I agree. It's very good. So, with that little mini review of Misery, let's move on to sort of our headlining act. But first, I want to talk about dump months. So, dump months are sort of known to be January and February and sometimes August. But for horror movies, specifically January, February. And the reason for a dump month, if you actually like look into it, is that some studios are contractually obligated to release said film theatrically. So they can't just dump it on DVD sometimes. So whenever they get a film that hasn't done very well in its test screenings, they don't have faith in it. Sometimes they'll just drop it in January because they don't want to waste money promoting it and putting it somewhere else. They would rather save that spot for another one of their films. Studios do not go into the production planning on it to being a dump month film. You know what I mean? It's usually when they realize what they have here is probably not so good. And that's why you have the stigma that January has bad horror films, because the studios don't have faith in them and they just drop them in January. There has been sort of a lot of talk about dump months and, if they're real, if they actually affect anything. Like, do dump month movies not make money? Do they not, are they automatically bad movies? Obviously there's variables to every type of thing, right? If just because a movie comes out in January doesn't mean that it's bad. Just because, a movie, comes out in the summer doesn't mean it's good. Obviously there's, the studio making money and quality of film do not always match up. Like, a film could be great and not make any money, like Dr. Sleep. A film could be bad and make a ton of money, like, I don't know, Happy Death Day. Even though I didn't think Happy Death Day was too bad, I thought it was completely overblown with the way people liked it. And then, so we see these dump month films all the time. Sometimes they're nice little surprises. Other times they're awful, like The Grudge. So films also, like, studios are kind of weird because, like, if you look at a film like 1917, which is not a horror film, but It came out for like 1 week in December, and now it got its official release here in January. You wouldn't consider 1917 a dump month film because it came out in January, and that is because this is an Oscar-chasing film. They often, in order to qualify for the Oscars, the Academy Awards, you have to have at least 1 week of release by December 31st. So they released it for 1 week in December and strategically re-released it before the Oscars in January. You know what I mean? So in order for it to count, it needed to be a limited release in December and then a wide release in January. And the movie's probably going to do well because it's gotten a lot of positive reviews. Like studios actually design movies in attempt to win Oscars sometimes. You know what I mean? So That's one of those films. Now, I was actually curious to see, like, is the dump month strategy well thought out? Is the dump month strategy good for studios? So what I mean by that is if a studio releases a film in January or February, does it have more of a shot to make money than if they released it in August or September? I would probably say yeah, based on the fact that, you know, September is a huge movie month and July and stuff like that. You're going to have way more competition. The competition in January is like usually dump month movies or carryover from December, like Star Wars, which is, you know, still there, but kind of, you know, nearing the end of its run. So not as much competition. So I was curious to see if dump month movies actually make money. And I was also curious to see how many horror films specifically have came out in dump month. So I actually do have a list here of horror movies that came out in January. I did not do February. I thought January would be enough. And I traced it back to 2010. So the last 10 years of dump month movies. So there was 2 films that came out in 2019, 2 films that came out in 2018, 2 films that came out in 2017, 2 films that came out in 2016, 2 films that came out in 2015, 3 in 2014, 3 in 2013, 2 in 2012, 1 in 2011, and 2 in 2010. So just to put that in perspective, we have 4 horror movies that are hitting this year in 2020. The closest ever before that was 2013 and 14 with 3. So that's kind of impressive in itself that we're getting more dump month movies than ever before. So out of all these films, I'm going to be honest, most of them made money, surprisingly. And what I did was I took the budget and then I took opening weekend. If opening weekend made more money than the budget, then the film most likely is going to make money. It's always kind of considered, if you make back your budget opening weekend, you're going to make money. Now, there are other things that are not factored into the budget, like promotion, which is sometimes considered double the budget. So if you have a $4 million production, then you have $4 additional million in promotion. So you have an $8 million in the hole. So, but, you know, if you make back the original budget in the first week, you're probably going to make enough to cover the rest of the film throughout the cycle of its life, including DVD and stuff like that. So in 2019, 2 out of the 2 movies made money. They were Escape Room and Glass. And then in 2018, 1 out of the 2 movies made money. That was Insidious: The Last Key made money, which made a lot of money, actually. And Underworld did not make money. It had a $35 million budget with a $13 million opening weekend. That was the 4th Underworld, which was Blood Wars. And then in 2017, 2 out of the 2 films made money. The Bye Bye Man did, in fact, make money. It doubled its budget opening weekend. And then Split killed it with a 4 times the budget gross.
Oh wow, Split was a dump monther?
A dump monther, yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Kind of interesting. There are some titles on here that might have been, designed to sort of not be a dump month film, but to just blow, I don't think these are all dump month films, but definitely some of them are. Like Escape Room seems like one. And, oh, by the way, Glass. That was not a dump month film either, I don't think. It's maybe Shyamalan just likes January.
Maybe.
So, 2016 here, we had two films. We had The Forest, which made money, as well as The Boy, which barely made money. It had a budget of $10 million with 10.7 as the opening weekend. And funny enough, we have The Boy 2 coming out, I think, next month or the month after. So that's kind of interesting. And then in 2015, we had one film that does not have, I couldn't tell if it made money because there was no budget for it, but it's The Woman in Black 2. And then The Boy Next Door actually made money. So that was the one in 2015. Then for 2014, like I said, 2 out of 3 made money. Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, which used to dominate October, got dumped on a dump month, and that actually did make money on the dump month. Devil's Due barely made money. And then I, Frankenstein lost a ton of money. That was a $65 million production that made $8.6 million opening weekend.
That sucks.
Yeah, so it seems like every once in a while studios put a ton of money into a film, realize it sucks really bad, and they're like, let's just bury this as fast as possible.
That's sad.
Yeah. So 2014 had 2 out of 3. And then 2013, I could not find information on Texas Chainsaw 3D, which had a $21 million opening, but I could not find any budget, so I don't know if it made money or not. Then the other film from there, 2013, one of the other films is Mama, which made money, Guillermo del Toro. And then, funny enough, this is the one that lost money. Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. $50 million budget, only grossed 19 opening weekend. I cannot believe that film had a Who spent $50 million on Hansel and Gretel?
Witch Hunters.
Yeah, which is funny because we know we have Gretel and Hansel, the Osgood Perkins film, coming out this month.
Yeah.
And then The Devil Inside for 2012 made money. Made a lot of money. Had a $1 million budget. Made $33 million opening weekend.
Wow.
I remember the promotion for that movie being really good.
I have you ever seen that movie?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either. I always thought it looked like it would suck, so.
And then the other film from 2012, Underworld Awakening, had a $70 million budget and only made $25 million. So that's the second time they shot themselves in the foot with Underworld.
That's a series I have no interest in.
Yeah. 2011, The Right lost money, $37 million budget, only $14 million gross. And then another film from 2010 made... the only horror film that came out in 2010 was Daybreakers, and that lost money. $20 million budget, $15 million gross. And then also from... Oh, sorry, that was 2011. No, that was 2010.
No, that was 2012.
No, that was 2010. Daybreakers. Yeah, Daybreakers was 2010. And the final film here is Legion, which also lost money. So 2010 went 0 for 2. 2011 went 0 for 1. So the early 2010s did very bad with dump months. Pretty much every other year, though, had a good chance at making money and even made money. So the dump month strategy seems to pay off more than not. You know, you have a film that you're not very confident in making money in the summer. You drop it in January where nothing else is really coming out and nobody really cares, and it usually makes money. Now, I think that, just making back the budget is one thing, but I think that, some of these films probably more got closer to even than actually made money, but even is still not a loss. So,
Yeah.
I think that studios kind of hope for at least breaking even when they drop these films in January. And then, you have this month, I don't know what the budget on Underwater was, but I don't think that, I know that it didn't do well. It did like $6.5 million. And then last week, The Grudge, which probably had like a $2 million budget or something, it made like 13. So I guess that's considered a success probably.
Yep.
I'm actually genuinely shocked that a PG-13 underwater movie made less money than a rated R Grudge film that everybody hated.
I know. Underwater had an 80 million budget, it looks like.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so bad. That might be the biggest loss on this. It is the biggest loss out of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
For
I assumed it was probably a
films.
huge budget.
Yeah, that was a film that was in production, started production in 2017, so 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think the studio realized, after they spent more and more money, oh, damn, we're effed. So with that said, let's actually get into Underwater.
All right.
So Underwater is a film released this past weekend. And what is it about, Carly?
It's essentially about this underwater team of people. What are they? Hold on. Aquatic researchers. Okay, aquatic researchers. They're, obviously they're underwater doing their work and whatnot. And the movie pretty much opens right away with, there's a break and all this water ends up pouring into where they're stationed and they're 7 miles underwater. So, they kind of run for safety. Some people end up dying in the mix, but there's a select few who get to safety, and then they're trying to devise a plan to actually get themselves out of underwater. And along the way, they find that there is something underwater with them. So they pretty much set out on this journey to get to the main base, I guess. So
they're in the main base.
Okay.
They have to go down to the ocean floor. They're deeper than anybody's ever been. They're drilling for oil. And then they go down to the base. They have to go down to the base of the ocean because their main structure is collapsing, and they need to walk to another station on the ocean floor.
Yeah, what he said.
So, yeah, and there's a monster. This will be spoiler free, so we won't get into the details of the later portion of the film. Let me just start off with the things that I liked. So first of all, I love the underwater setting. I think that it is super cool. I think that it's claustrophobic. I think that it's scary. The idea of running out of breath, out of air is, horrifying to me. 47 Meters Down is one of the better films I've ever seen do the underwater situation. Not the sequel, but the original 47 Meters Down. Or is it 48 Meters Down?
47.
Okay, I always get that confused.
Yeah.
So I do like the underwater setting. The second thing that I really liked about this movie was the opening, where we are with Kristen Stewart.
Yes.
And this film in the opening and even later in the film, total male gaze. This movie is ridiculous with it, because the way they're shooting Kristen Stewart in her underwear is straight up. It reminds me of Alien. It really does. That was a clear homage to Alien, clearly trying to channel Alien. She's in her underwear throughout most of the movie. When she's not in her wetsuit. But when the ship or the rig starts collapsing is my favorite part in the movie. Whenever they're running And the way it's shot, it looks really cool. It looks super hectic and dangerous, and it's actually kind of scary. And then where she's like waiting to close the door, but the two other people are like running down the hall and the water's coming in. And like ultimately what happens there, that was actually my favorite part of the movie. And I was like, wow, this movie's going to be awesome. Like 5 minutes into it, I was like, this movie's going to be great. Like that was such a good scene. It never lived up to that ever again in the entire movie.
Yeah, I agree. Like the opening scene has a lot to offer. Kristen Stewart, I'm not a big fan of. I think she's very, very bland in everything she does, so that was kind of like an automatic turnoff for me. I like her look in this movie, with that just short blonde hair. I don't know. I think she was very fitting for the role, but I don't know. Her acting I just find to be a little. She's like walking depression. That's what she reminds me of. Just that's what depression is in like a human form. But I agree. I like the underwater setting. I think that should be utilized more because drowning is like one of my biggest fears, and I think that would be horrifying I would never ever do any job or anything that involves me being underwater like that because I think that's terrifying. And so I do like the movie for that. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of bland to me. I'm not a huge fan, as you know, of these types of movies anyway. Like, I think Alien's a great film, but it's not one I ever felt like watching necessarily. Just kind of the more action-y, although, the first Alien's more horror than action, but this one definitely has some action-y vibes to it that I just don't really care for. But even that's kind of bland. Like, I would just describe this movie as kind of generic. It's nothing overly original. Just the story is very much what you would expect from it, and I just didn't get a whole lot out of it, I guess.
I think my biggest problem is the complete, like, one, I like the movie starting fast, right? Because it starts right away. Like 5 minutes in, you're into the movie, like the main plot is happening. But the thing that I didn't care for is the fact that the characters are severely underdeveloped.
Yeah.
They throw in like, oh, this person has a daughter. Oh, this person is in a relationship. Oh, this person loves this person. But it is like basic as all hell. It is as basic as it comes. It's like literally just like throwing it in there. It's literally throwing it in there. It's actually horrible. The character development is horrible in this film, and it's a film where you're spending a lot of time with the characters and you're supposed to be caring if they live or die, and it just doesn't work because you don't know who any of them are. Like the funny guy, I guess, has like the most character development because he's funny. He has like funny moments. So I guess you care about that. And then like he is kind of like taken out of the film, like half of the film, you know what I mean? Based on like the story. And I think that the lack of character development really hurts the later portion of the film where you're supposed to be like nervous for these people. And then also I honestly think it's kind of messy in its, execution. There's the way that the helmets are designed to stay underwater is like bad for this movie because they basically are taken off like a like diver, like a what are the divers in the metal suits with the you know what I'm talking about?
No.
No, like regular divers with the metal suits and the window in the front.
Scuba divers?
Yeah, but not with like the deep divers, the people that have to wear the suits, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what yeah.
Like Cuba Gooding Jr. and like Men of Honor or whatever it's called, like those kind of diving suits. The big metal brass diving suits. It has the same sort of helmet as that where you like twist it on. Okay, well they take the helmets off when they're in a safe area, but then they're like, running or like something's happening and you're like, where the hell are their helmets? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like they have, what do they have them in their hands under the water? Like, I don't buy this. It's very, very poorly designed choice that makes you think like, what's going on with these people? Like, how are they able to like have their helmet and slip it on so fast and stuff like that? Because it's like kind of a huge deal. And then like the whole air thing, I think that it's completely mishandled. Like, ways to make the film tense and it makes you question, like, okay, how can they do this? How can they do that?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little ridiculous with that stuff. I think that one of the best parts of the film is actually the what's actually after them.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I agree.
Pretty
yeah,
cool.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, especially in the end. I really
Mm-hmm.
like that. But I don't know. I mean, I just felt like this film was a little misguided. It was a film that had potential. It definitely had mad potential. Like it looks good underwater. Like it looks like they did have a lot of money to play around with. It should have been better. There should have been more focus on threatening creatures, because although I like the look of the monster,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they underutilized the setting. They
Yeah, it's almost
underutilized the attacks. They underutilized the way that the characters interact. And man, did they really drop the ball on the whole. Like, you look at Alien, like
mm-hmm.
this film, if you're gonna make it like Alien, you should follow the structure and the beats of the story too, because the way they handled this is just poor.
Yeah. Like the monster's almost like an afterthought, honestly, with everything else. It feels, because they're already trying to get to safety from, their base being destroyed, but then the monster just doesn't seem like as big of a deal as I was expecting it to be in the movie. And yeah, it's cool that it starts out pretty solid. Like it gets right into the movie with all the action and stuff, but I think that kind of almost hurts the character development, because there's a way you can make that work, where you start out strong and then you kind of introduce your characters and develop them, but they failed at that in a way. And I feel like if they would have just had like an opening scene or something to where you get to know the characters, much like movies like Alien and The Thing and stuff like that do, then it could have been a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that the whole entire movie just is a misstep. I do not think that it's that bad, but honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I sort of got to that part where I was like getting a bit bored with it and was like wanting it to end, like wanting it to hurry up, which back-to-back weeks for that is not what I want, man. I mean, normally, like most of those January titles that I listed off earlier, I liked most of those movies. But there was a lot of stuff on there that I like didn't have interest in, like The Right and stuff like that. I don't know. There was a lot of like devil stuff in that list. But yeah. I mean, I thought this movie looked cool when they started showing the previews for it earlier in the later in last year.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, this actually looks like something that could be pretty fun. Like, I love the underwater setting. It's basically, if this would have just been Alien underwater, I would have been fine with that. I would have been like, that sounds like a fun movie to me. But it's knockoff Alien that's nowhere near as good, or even nowhere near half as good as Alien. It honestly is unfortunate, because it had potential. It had the money behind it. It had the creatures. It had even the acting was like fine. But the script needed much more work. So that's kind of my thoughts on Underworld. Do you want to rate this thing?
Called it Underworld.
Underwater.
Yeah.
I'm just miss-saying everything tonight.
It's all right. Yeah, it's not a great film. I feel like seeing The Grudge first kind of made this one seem quite a bit better, because it's obviously much better than The Grudge was, but even then it's nothing special. That's the big problem with it, and it's very forgettable. It's one of those ones that I'll probably never think about again for the rest of the year. So I gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower than you. I just don't think it's very good. It's a movie that I wanted to like. I actually went in with decent expectations. Like, I didn't expect to be blown away, but I was like, I bet this is gonna be like, a solid 7.5 movie. Like an escape room or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. It was weak, man. I gave it a 6.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's for creature design, setting, acting, and, general aesthetics. The rest of this stuff, script is the worst part.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is the end of our underwater review. Pretty small cast on that one. Only had, I believe, 6 cast members.
Yeah.
But next week we will be coming back for The Turning, which is based on a novel, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It is a drama horror mystery, PG-13 as well. So back-to-back PG-13 films. It says here, courtesy of IMDb, a young governess is hired by a man who has become responsible for his young nephew and niece after the deaths of their parents. A modern take on Henry James's novella, The Turn of the Screw.
Interesting.
Yeah, so what's your expectations on this one?
I don't even know anymore. To me, I didn't think it looked that bad. I see, most people saying, oh, that looks like a piece of crap. I don't know. Based on the trailer, I didn't think it looked horrible. I thought it looked kind of interesting, but I feel like nowadays, anytime I think that, I'm completely wrong. So I'm kind of just going in with, pretty, mediocre, low expectations and hoping to be surprised.
Yeah, I personally didn't think that it looked good at all. This is back when I was still watching trailers. But as you're very well aware, I'm done watching trailers again.
Yeah, can confirm, guys. He sits there and listens to rap music now with his beats.
They're
we
like
can't talk at all.
bright red big beats too.
Yeah.
They're just so in your face. I'm normally not like an obnoxious headphone wearer, but the earbuds aren't loud enough that I have, so yeah. But yeah, so that is the show. I thought it was a pretty good one. I had fun.
Me too.
All right, so we will see you guys next week with another one. We will be covering The Turning. With that said, I am JP.
And I'm Carly.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.